After hearing all the things that Atticus has done, I feel we're way underqualified for this. So we can't sing, but we'll try to talk to you guys and stuff. Okay.
Hello, my name's Cole Wielgosz. I am 17 years old.
My name's Connor Wielgosz. I'm 19 years old. We are part-time brothers and full-time friends from Winnipeg, Manitoba.
So as mentioned, past spring, over a year ago now, I had the amazing opportunity to travel with a company called Meet a We in association with Free the Children on a volunteer to Kenya. Now, while on the ground in Kenya, we saw a lot of big things that Free the Children was doing, most of it involving community development, building schools, offering microloans to the community to let them get back on their feet, a very holistic approach to the issue. But one of the biggest things that struck home on that trip was the inaccessibility to water, and the water that was actually accessible there was dirty. So one morning we woke up and we went outside of our big army-style tents, and we met with some of the mamas from the community. They had a bunch of jerry cans sitting near them, which were a bunch of misplaced jugs with strings on them, and we started walking. And as we walked and we walked and we walked, we realized this was a 25, almost 30-minute walk in order for them to get to their water. So we approached a relatively large lake, and we said, okay, we're here. And they said, no. That's where the cattle drink, that's downstream, so we have to walk a little bit further. So we finally get to a small clearing in the trees where they gather their water, and it looks like grass. It's covered in such a thick layer of moss that you almost couldn't tell it was water. They took the jerry cans and they brushed away the moss, and it was brown as dirt. And they filled up all these jugs for us, and then they partnered us. They partnered us so that one of us took the jug halfway, and the other took the other half back to the camp. They didn't want a bunch of healthy 17 and 18-year-old high school students to have to walk the same walk that these mamas in this community had to walk 3 or 4 times a day in order to gather their water. We picked up the jugs and we strung them over our heads and we walked with them on our backs, and I didn't even make it my halfway until I had to take a break and switch off with my partner. This was absolutely insane. This was the struggle that these mamas had to go through in their community every day in order to get water.
So Cole got home and he told me about the things that he saw, and we decided that we had to do something. There was a problem, and somebody has to address that problem, and we said we can be some of those people. So what we did is we decided to start an initiative called the Water Cycle Project. So what is the Water Cycle Project? It's on our shirts, it's on the screen, it's in our minds, it's in our hearts. Well, the Water Cycle Project is a fundraising initiative aimed at raising awareness and funds for water issues around the world.
We realized that in order to shine light on such a huge problem, we would have to do something big as well.
So what we decided to do is we hop on our bikes and gather kilometers. And before the end of August, since September, we're gathering enough kilometers to circumvent the Earth, which is just over 40,000 kilometers.
Now, included in this distance will be our cross-country cycle from June 1st to August 31st. Now, we're hoping to spread our cause across the nation and find supporters in every province.
So far, we've raised over $2,600, and all of that is going directly to providing clean, accessible water to those in need through an organization, as mentioned before, called Free the Children.
Now, Free the Children is a nonprofit organization that, apart from doing a whole bunch of community development in the communities they work with, has also provided over 1 million people since 1995 with access to clean, sanitary water.
Now, another reason that we chose Free the Children is because they take a holistic approach at community development through the 5 pillars of their Adopt a Village program.
So we'll let you guys know how to get involved with our project later, but for now, we're going to talk about water.
Now, in developing regions, most people get by on around 20 liters of water a day. This is our big jug. This is our markers for how much water there is. So 20 liters of water a day is what most people in developing regions get. Now, this line right here that you see a dash, that's what the UN says is an acceptable amount of water. That's what people need in order to survive. That's for things like cooking, cleaning, sanitation, and drinking. So that's 50 liters of water. And most people get by on just under half of that. Now, we here in Canada and in the United States and in Europe tend to use a lot more water than that. And just to put into perspective of how much water we're using versus how much water a lot of people struggle by on every single day, we're going to do a little activity with some water here. And we're just going to go through an average day. So on the average day, you wake up, you go downstairs, you know, you're a little groggy, so you hop in the shower. You run that shower for 5 minutes, you know, sing some songs, and by the time you get out, you will have used your first 50 liters of water, which is what the UN says is required for a day, which is twice or 2.5 times as much as most people get by on in the first 5 minutes of your day.
Now, after you shower, of course, many of us have this bad habit, you go pee in the toilet instead of just in the shower, which really you probably should. It's fine. But you use water at 10 liters a flush just to do that. So, we're going to throw that on there.
Now, the next part of the day, we're going to have to think ahead because tomorrow we've got a crazy day. And you know what we don't have today? Clean clothes. Looks like we're going to have to do some laundry. So, we go and we grab our dirty clothes, we throw them in the washing machine, and by the time that your clothes are spiffy clean, another 100 liters of water have been used.
So, spiffy clothes requires a spiffy yard for our big day tomorrow. So we're going to do some gardening. Now, your hose runs at about 8 to 10 liters a minute. So 10 minutes of just watering your plants is going to give you 100 liters of water use added to your day.
Now, while you're outside, you know, you might get a phone call, right? So, oh, ring, 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 ring.
Hello?
Ring, ring, ring. Yo, hey man, what's going on?
Yeah, who's this?
Dude, it's nature.
Nature? Why are you calling?
And back to the bathroom we go again. Bad toilet humor for another 10 liters of water.
So, after you go back to the washroom, you're going to have some clean dishes for tomorrow. So you load up the dishwasher and you press go. That's 125, or no, that's 75 liters on average just to wash your dishes.
Now, we've had a long day. I know, I can see it in your eyes. We're getting a little tired. And what better way to relax at the end of the day than taking a soothing bath? We fill it up, we hop inside, we drop that bath bomb in, and bam! By the time that we are inside, the warm water around us, 125 liters, have been used.
Now, it's the end of the day. I'm feeling a little pooped. Are you feeling a little pooped?
I'm feeling a little
Now, that's another 10 liters for a flush. And you've brought yourself up to around 30 liters a day just to flush your excrement down the toilet.
Okay, so we've got to the end of our day. We've settled in our bed, not feeling anything in regards to how much water we've used today. In reality, we have used almost 500 liters of water, but don't distress, I promise you. We're not that bad because we live with our families, right? We have our mom and our dad, and we share the washing machine, share the gardening, the dishwasher. So in actuality, we only each use about 350 liters of water a day, which is still way up here.
Now, that's compared to the 50 liters of water needed and the 20 liters used on average in developing regions. And unfortunately, it's not even clean. So we're going to throw a lot of statistics at you guys today, but we want to try and boil them down. Because with such a huge issue and such huge statistics, it's really easy to get lost in a big number. So when someone gives you a large number, you might tend to write it off as, oh, that's a lot. That's a big issue. How could I possibly make change on that? So 2.5 billion people in the world lack access to proper sanitation. Now, think about what that means. That means that more people in the world own a cell phone than people who own a toilet. Think about you and 5 of your closest friends, the 6 of you. Now, that means one of you doesn't have access to a toilet. And that means 2 of you don't have proper sanitation. Now, that's absolutely insane. Considering there's 780 million people who lack access to clean water in the world today, think about a hockey team of 15 people. Pretty easy to picture. Maybe if hockey's not your sport, picture your own sports team. There's 15 of you. That means that when you show up on game day, one of you has a water bottle full of dirty water.
So how about here, these first 2 rows, can you stand up? You have a bottle full of dirty water. Just you. You can sit down. Oh, okay.
Now, you
Now you can stand up.
have a bottle
Stay standing.
half
Everybody
full
needs
of
to look
dirty
at you.
water.
Judge you.
All right? If we could get two of you to stand up again, those 2, unfortunately, can't use the toilet during intermission.
They get to
have
go outside.
Yeah.
Open defecation.
Now, if 5 of you could stand up, so another one of you, there you go. Those 5 lack access to sanitation. That's 1/3 of the hockey team. That's 1/3 of the world's population. That's insane.
So you guys can sit back down. Here's another statistic for you guys. Sources say that between 850,000 and 3.5 million people die every year from water-related diseases. Now, I know I can see some eyes glazing over there because those are huge numbers, right? You can't really think of what that means. 850,000, 3.5 million. Well, let's boil that down. Let's bring that to relatable terms. Let's talk about one single person. How often is one single person killed by a water-related disease? Well, if we're using those numbers, then it would be every 10 to 30 seconds. In other words, 2 to 6 people every minute die from a water-related disease. Think about that for a second. Think about what's happened in the past minute. Think of the stuff that we've said. In that short time, 2 to 6 people somewhere around the world died because they don't have access to clean water. Think about it this way. Do you guys like playing Yahtzee? Every minute you get to roll a dice, and that many people die around the world. Those are family, friends, doctors. I know. Oh, and here's the best part. If you roll a 1, you get to roll again. How crazy is that? I mean, when we think about it as 850,000 people or 3.5 million people, it's impossible to wrap our heads around that size. But when we think about it with a relatable way, with that dice of 2 to 6 people dying every single minute, it's a lot easier to empathize. So why is this? Why is it that when we hear about one person struggling, a single person on the news, we're more affected, more moved? We feel it's more severe than these statistics that we hear every day, or the global catastrophes that are happening around the world, whether it's a tornado or a hurricane or a drought. I mean, when you really think about it, if we hear that 625,000 children, and that's not just children, but children under the age of 5, die every year from diarrhea that they get from drinking dirty water, it should seem logical that we would feel 625,000 times as bad as when a local child dies in a local car accident. But it might just be that our brains aren't able to process that number of people. And that might be, in a way, a part of something called Dunbar's number, or what I like to hear it called the monkey sphere. Okay, so I'm going to do a little paraphrasing here. There's this British anthropologist, his name is Robin Dunbar. And Robin Dunbar is studying monkeys, because what better animal to study than monkeys, poo-throwing monkeys. So he goes into the forest and he looks at these monkeys and he's seeing some trends happening. He sees that these monkeys tend to hang out in social groups, okay? They tend to hang out in groups of around 40 to 60 people. But some of the groups are smaller and some of the groups are larger. So some hang out in groups of 40, some hang out in groups of 50, some in groups of 60. Now what he does next is he looks at the size of the monkey's brains. He takes them open. I'm not sure if he took them open or if he used x-rays or something. I hope he used x-rays. But he takes these monkeys and he looks at their brains and he sees that the size of a brain is directly related to the size of the social group. In other words, if a monkey had a smaller brain, he would hang out in a smaller group of people. And if he had a bigger brain, he would hang out in a bigger group of monkeys. So what he did is he took this number and he radicalized it up to humans because we are the center of the universe. And he said, what would be the size of humans? What would be our social group? And what he found was that number was 150. So the best way that I've heard this described on what that 150 number means is that that's how many people we can actually recognize as people, that aren't just two-dimensional cutouts, caricatures of people that we know exist, but we don't really understand them or understand that they exist. It's like when you hear that one person is hurt, or you hear that 1,000 people are hurt. And when you hear that 1,000, you're less affected than by hearing one. Where is that line drawn, that line of empathy? Well, Dunbar says it's about 150. But we already have families, and we already have friends, and we already have teachers and doctors and dentists and all these people in our lives. So that number of 150 is a little bit smaller. The number comes down to be about 100. So that's about 100 people that you could recognize at a time as being actual people. And when statistics, and we hear these facts and news stories and statistics that are over that 100 people, we don't understand them because our brains can't process that. I'll give you a really good example on how we can understand what I mean when we don't see people as people. So your family, your friends, picture them for a second. Your teachers. You all know that those are people, right? And if something were to happen to them, you would feel really, really bad, right? But now, what about somebody like the mailman, okay? We know the mailman exists. We know he's there. He delivers our mail. The mail just doesn't magically appear in our mailboxes. But we don't really think of that mailman as a person. He's just a guy who delivers mail. He's like an actor or a cardboard cutout of a person that's just sort of there on the side doing something in our world. When we look and think of the mailman, we would never think about him having a family or friends or hobbies or loving things the same way that we do. He's just a mailman. Here's an even better example. When you look up at us on the stage, I'm sure you're thinking that we're just speakers, right? We're not people with friends and families and aspirations and dreams and rad t-shirts. We're just speakers. So when we're talking about Dunbar's number and this 150 people that we can really recognize as people, it's important to not look at statistics as huge numbers, but to boil them down into something relatable. Instead of thinking of 1 million people that lack access to clean water, think about one single person that lacks access to clean water. Think about the stuff that they have to go through every day. Think about that 6-kilometer walk that they have to take just to get water. When you put ourselves in each other's shoes, find more relatable ways of saying things, it becomes easier to empathize. So I know we sometimes feel that things are out of our control and not really worth fighting to change. It might just be because they're too big for us to actually comprehend, or they're just too far away for us to notice. If we boil things down, it might be a solution.
Now, the name of our talk is Extending Empathy Beyond Our Backyards. So, what exactly do we mean by that? Well, that has two parts. The first being empathy. Now, it's just like Connor said. It's about boiling statistics down. It's about making things relatable. It's about overriding that monkey brain. It's about thinking, instead of 20,000, think of 20. Instead of 780 million people lacking access to clean water, think of 1 in 10. Think of 1 in 10 of your friends having to deal with that struggle every day.
And the second part of that is taking action. It's about realizing that we as humans have potential as individuals to change things. It's about understanding that those lives of the 1 in 10 people without clean water matter, but also that every single one of our actions do as well. It's about seeing opportunities for positive growth and change in our communities and acting on them. It's about finding people in need and helping them.
Now, when I was in Kenya, our facilitator taught us, well, 2 equations that really struck home with me. So if you listen to nothing else we said today, listen to this. The first is that anger plus love equals passion. Now, that means when you find an issue that you love, that you care so deeply about, but at the same time makes you absolutely furious that it exists and that it's still a problem in this world, you've found your passion. Now, you take that passion and you plug it into passion plus gift equals change. You find your gift. You find what you like to do. You find what you're good at. And you find a way to add it to your passion so you can create change. Say you like to paint. Hold an art show in support of homelessness.
Or if you like to bike, then bike around the world in support of water issues.
Whatever your passion is, you can find a way to create change.
Now, it's important that we not only help the people that we know and are close with in our lives, but to extend that to people that we don't know, whether they're in our community or somewhere else around the world.
So it means putting yourself in other people's shoes. It means seeing statistics as personal situations, not just as numbers. And it's about finding a desire in yourself to improve other people's lives around the world.
Now, if you'd like to join us on our initiative, the Water Cycle Project, it's here on our shirts, on the screen, in our minds, and in our hearts. Then you can join us. We're having a social on May 9th. All the info for that, as well as about our project, is going to be at thewatercycleproject.com. So all the info is going to be there if you want to check out and join us on our initiative to help provide clean water to people around the world.
And definitely join us on our journey. When we're biking across Canada, we'll hopefully be tweeting at you guys, posting on Instagram, talking all about it, so you can stay involved with us and find ways to be a part of the cause. So, if anything else, what's important is to put yourself in someone else's shoes. When I was in Kenya, we did that water walk, and I literally got to be for half an hour in the shoes of these mamas around the world. And then after that, I got to be in the shoes of the facilitators that work every day in Kenya in order to create change. So find empathy inside yourself for the situations happening around the world and find a way to change them.
Thank you.
You.